go live. So I just realized that I did not hit going live. So I don't know how much of the video is already going to be uploaded. So the hope is that I'm live now. All right, so basically, I guess I've been talking for the past 2 minutes without uh, without it actually working. So this stream is going to be discussing Chronology, the package that we use to run our GPT-3 pipelines, and why you might want to use it for your projects too, and what's different from it from the regular kind of prompt workflow, and what kind of abilities you get with the tool. So one thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to post on Twitter really quickly to say that I'm live, and then we'll be able to get going. So give me 1 second to do that, and then we'll be able to go. Cool. So I'm just gonna see if it works. I'm gonna message my coworkers in Slack and see if they can see, make sure that it's actually happening. Okay, cool. So looks like we're good. So I'm going to hop right into it. And if there are any questions, please just go ahead and drop a message in the chat, and I'll be checking that a little bit to kind of like see what kind of questions we have. So first off, let's introduce the Chronology demo, and why we're doing this in the first place. So why was Chronology even made is actually a really good question. Chronology was made because I, as a developer, was running into a number of problems using the OpenAI API, specifically to tie results together from different prompts. I was kind of repeating myself a lot. I was calling the same API call over and over and over, and plugging in different engines was kind of a pain. So one thing that I wanted to do was to make that process a lot more straightforward. So this was a real use case of solving a problem for yourself, and then it turns out that it's able to be helpful to others as well. So, what's up, Matt Schumer and M2F5? How are you guys doing? So a little higher level overview of what we're going to be doing. We're going to talk really briefly about installing Chronological and how you can get it. We're going to talk about cloning the repo to your local machine. We're going to create an environment file with your OpenAI API key, so you'll be able actually to call Chronology, and then we're going to be running each step and talking about the steps. So the first step that we're going to talk about are completions. So completions, they're the bread and butter of the OpenAI API, like I put here, and it's the first thing that most people see when they use the playground. It's kind of the storyteller, but it's also kind of the classifier. There's a lot of things that you can do with it with higher and lower temperatures, so it's very common to use. So in this step, we're going to talk about how to read in a prompt from a text file, how to use an awaited completion from the DaVinci engine. There's 4 engines in the OpenAI API. There's Ada, Babbage, Curie, and DaVinci, and they all kind of grow up and scale, and DaVinci is the largest one that allows you to do the most, quote unquote, and is the most kind of creative. Hey Josh, how's it going, dude? So then we're going to load in some variables, and we're going to attach them to the prompt. and then we're going to create completions with each variable formatted prompt. The next step that we're going to talk about is the semantic search API, which allows you to filter a set of documents based on some kind of query. Specifically, we're going to read in a list of animals from a text file, similar to how we read the prompt in step 1. And then we're going to use search on the Ada engine, which again is the smallest engine. And we're going to show that you can return multiple documents. And the real powerhouse, the real reason that anyone would want to use this tool and library in the first place is that you can combine the powers of programming with the OpenAI API. So I think a lot of the times that I speak to people in the OpenAI Slack channel and stuff like that, a lot of people are playing around with the prompts in the playgrounds, and they're kind of keeping them segregated or separate from the rest of their workflow. And I think that that's actually a big misstep. I think that a lot of people can gain a lot by combining the power of traditional programming with the results from the OpenAI API. So we'll be applying a little extra logic. It won't be much coding, and then we're going to talk a little bit about the no code UI at the end. All right, so let's hop into it. We're going to kind of just see a lot of code, and don't be freaked out. it's a lot, but it's not a lot. 1 second, I'm getting another Slack. Cool. All right, so let's start off here with installing Chronology. So the thing that you're going to want to do to install Chronology, I already have it installed on my computer, but you're going to want to type in python 3/m pip install chronological. Running that command will allow you to install Chronological's latest package with pip. And you can get more instructions for that in the demo. Like I said, again, I already have it on my computer, so I don't really need to download it again for the purposes of this demo. So what we'll see here in step 1 is that we're importing the chronological library with the read prompt method, clean completion, and main method. So these 3 methods allow you to kind of do different things. Oh, hey, Brent, sorry. I'm just jumping back and forth between chat. How long did it take you to get comfortable with the different GPT-3 engines? Like having a good idea of what will get returned to you? That's a good question. I think that most people are familiar with DaVinci first because it's the largest one and it returns the most accurate kind of use cases. But I think that a really great way to kind of get familiar with the other engines is to use something like Ada for searching. So Ada is really good at doing like searches across a database, and that kind of gives you a familiarity of how broad Ada's understanding is of things, and Babbage and Curie. And Curie is really good at certain use cases too. Like I would really recommend Curie for a lot of use cases that involve kind of like chat applications, versus where DaVinci is better at kind of like creative outputs or kind of like continuation type stuff. So they all have different use cases. To be honest, I haven't used Babbage too much because I usually switch from Ada or Curie or DaVinci, but Babbage does some stuff too, I'm sure. Okay, so jumping back into it, we have the read prompt method, the clean completion, and main method. And we're going to talk about them all. So the first thing is the main method. So the main method is a asynchronous method. So the whole kind of thing about Chronology is that you're able to run asynchronous logic. And this asynchronous logic is helpful because you're able to call GPT in steps in between your code and stuff like that. So we're calling the main function on a function that we wrote called the logic function. So right here we have this async function, right? So that means it's running asynchronously. Logic function. And then we're saying, hey main, I want you to run on this logic function. So for step 1, we have our basic example and then our basic example with variables. So basic example is relatively simple. Basically what we're doing is we're setting up a variable, which we're reading a prompt from this file name. So what does this file look like? So if we go to summarize for a second grader, we see that like my second grader, this is like a text file that you might type into the playground. So you said my second grader asked me what this passage means. One sec. Here's a long Wikipedia paragraph about olive oil. It's pretty long, pretty kind of dense. And then I wanted to rephrase it for him in a plain language that a second grader can understand. So that's great. That's really helpful because you can kind of keep prompts forever, which is a big problem with the playground if you've refreshed something and you didn't save it. So if you want to keep something forever, this method is great because you can just save them in text files on your local machine. And then after we're going to take that prompt and we're going to pass it to the completion, which is just a wrapper, again, for the OpenAI API completion, cleaned completion. One thing that it does, this cleaned part, basically, is trimming the white space from the beginning and the end of the string for you. So you don't need to worry about extra new lines hanging out. So it's taken in that prompt. It's taken in a number of max tokens, the engine that we're going to be running it on, DaVinci, the temperature, which is going to be like 0.5 for our case, top P in our frequency penalty. One thing that I forgot to mention is that you are going to need an env file with your OpenAI API key to use this. So after you install it for this kind of step, this clean completion in main to work, you're going to need to await it, and it's going to need your env file. So hold on, let me see if there's any questions. Oh, no, you're welcome, Brent. Glad I could help. Hopping back into it. So the second kind of more powerful concept with the prompting is that we can add variables. So let's say, for example, you had the same prompt, right? So you had this second grader prompt, but instead of this olive oil line, you just wanted to have anything. So what you can do with Python is you can do these curly brackets and then put in a number, 0. So basically what this is saying is that every time that it sees a variable, it's going to sub in that variable here. So for step 1, I gave us 2 variables. The olive oil variable, which is saying, again, just the paragraph from Wikipedia, and then the first paragraph of interior design from Wikipedia. So we're reading in the variables prompt with the read prompt, again, from the text file. You don't need to do .txt. You just need to do the file name. Then we're doing the dot format method in Python. And what the dot format method allows you to do is pass in a variable that gets inserted into the string. And then we're saving that into these variables, right? So after that, we're going to run our completion. Again, the engines here doesn't matter. You can change this one to Ada or Curie or DaVinci. They're not linked together. So you can do, this one you only want to be, let's say 80 tokens, and that one you want to be 100 tokens, and you want this to be, a lot lower of a temperature. And then everything else is kind of the same. So let's run this and see what happens. So I'm going to do Python 3 step1.py. So what's happening here is that it's calling the OpenAI API and it's logging all the things. So we see that here's our 0.5, here's our presence penalty, here's our 80 tokens, here's our temperature equals 0.2, here are the other variables, and then it's saving them, which is nice. So we see olive oil, here's the shortened response for it, and then here's our 2 variables responses. So the olives are picked from the olive tree, and then it's saying an interior designer is the art of, making something look pretty. And it kind of helps shorten this one as well. So that's kind of one of the big tenets of using Chronology as a tool, is that you'll be able to save a lot of time by saving things to variables, but then also, you'll be able to use text prompts. So that's pretty much what I have for step 1. If there are any questions, again, I can come back to it, but I'm going to jump into step 2 now. I'm going to change these back to what they were to talk about step 2. For step 2, we have read prompt again, fetch match search stock, and main. So we've already talked about read prompt and main. This one's new though, fetch match search stock. 1 second, just some water. So we see again that we have some asynchronous functions for fetching a top animal or fetching a number of animals, in this case 3, and then our logic function again, right? So we're saying, hey, wait for fetch top animal to be called on the query of monkey, and wait again for the top 3 animals to be called on monkey. So what does animals look like? That's a great question. So it's also a text file, and it's just a comma separated list, like a CSV, of different animals. You got tigers, you got vaquitas. I don't know what a vaquita is. You got elephants and orangutans. So to run this, we're going to do it in the same way as we see here too. Actually, I forgot to address. It logs the amount of time that your workflow takes. This is really handy because it shows you when you should be moving to smaller engines, because larger engines are going to take more time. So note that this one took 11 seconds to finish, 11.8 seconds. Let's see how fast the Ada one finishes, because in the Ada one, in step 2, these are both using Ada. Ada is the smaller engine. Remember, DaVinci is the big engine. DaVinci takes a while, right? So let's hit enter. So it's calling search, finished in 1 second, so a lot faster. And it's fetching the top animal that's closest to a monkey in that list of animals that we had is a chimpanzee. The top 3 animals are a chimpanzee, then a Sumatran orangutan, and then a Sumatran rhino, which I don't really know. I think that's probably because of Sumatran. So it saw Sumatran here, and then it was like, okay, I guess that's also Sumatran. So that's handy, right? So we get to kind of use the search API. Hi, Tom. How's it going? We get to use the search API to fetch any n number of things from our list of documents. And that allows us to kind of supercharge, quote unquote, our workflow as well, because the search API is very powerful and fast, as we can see here. So finally, we're going to tie it all together with logic from code. So I think one of the big things that I wanted to get across with this library is that we wanted to make it really easy for people to type in text files, add their own code, kind of like use GPT-3 as a line of code as opposed to its own separate project. So what we can see here is that we have the fetch top 3 animals again. Again, this code might be confusing, but it's all on GitHub if you want to run through it at your own speed. You're reading the prompts. We're splitting it on the commas. Like I said, a comma separated list. And then we're returning the top 3. So let's say that, for example, we wanted a prompt where we wanted to find an animal's favorite food. So we got an elephant's favorite food. We got tree bark. What's an otter's favorite food? We got crabs. What's a zero's favorite food? Remember, 0 is a variable, so it can be anything. So we're going to read in the prompt of what is the favorite food and start an empty array, or initialize an empty array of favorite foods. So for every animal in our list of animals, we're going to call completion on what that favorite food is for that particular animal. So in this case, it will call chimpanzee, orangutan, rhino. What is this chimpanzee's favorite food? What's an orangutan's favorite food? And then it's going to call that on DaVinci. So now we're starting to see that, like, oh, look, we have an Ada search, a DaVinci completion, and it's running code to like separate, the names. So this is where we start to kind of like see the value of Chronology, because we can start to see the different ways that you can leverage this tool. So let's run this step 2. Step 3. Let's run this step as well. See what happens. So it's calling a bunch of searches. So if we go up here to the logs, we see that there's a bunch of different DaVinci completions happening. These are the completion results. These are the things that it was called on. We see the same thing is happening for search up here. That's returning the scores and cleaning them up for you. And then it's saying a chimpanzee's favorite food is bananas. Sumatran orangutan's favorite food is bananas. A Sumatran rhino's favorite food is apparently Sumatran rhinos. That's pretty dark. I don't believe that to be true, but maybe it is in this case. But I doubt it. I feel like it's the most likely not Sumatran rhinos. I'm just convinced. So that's pretty much what we got. Tom who knows. Hi, I'm not a coder. I wanted to try to connect with you because I'm seeing some strange outputs from Vienna. Yeah, Tom. Yeah, shoot me a Slack message on the OpenAI API channel. That's totally cool. So we are going to talk a little bit on the topic of non-coding about the UI and how to get it. So again, like I said, for installation, you're going to do this Python 3 pip command and then use download chronological by using the pip install chronological, which is also linked here in the GitHub. So let's talk a little bit about the UI. So the UI is a work in progress. I'm not much of a UI guy, but it's kind of similar where you choose a text file, you choose a list of variables. Sometimes you have variables, sometimes you don't. And then let's say you want to run your completion block on this one. So, and then let's say that you have another completion block that's using the result of this block, but it's running on DaVinci at a really low temperature and a really high top P. And this is running at a 0.75 for each, let's say. So you'll hit this generate Python code button and it'll write the Python code for you. So this is really cool. So basically what's happening is that it's importing all the libraries for you. It's calling the completion. We don't have a prompt in here because I don't think I set up a text file for this demo. We have the engines that is being called on. Again, roughly 0.75. Really low temperature for the second one here. Really same temperature for block 1 and block 2. And then we're calling main logic. So this builds that for you. So for people who don't know how to code, there's a way for you to use Chronology as well and work with the members of your team to be able to create stuff together. So that's pretty much the project as it stands. There's a lot of cool stuff to be done with Chronology in terms of open source. It's open source. So if you or someone you know likes to write code and wants to help out with this project, we would really appreciate that. We're trying to build this to be a tool that's really helpful to a lot of people. So that's kind of where I'm at. If there's any more questions in the chat, I'll hang around for about 2 more minutes. If anyone has anything that they want to say. Thank you for coming. Thanks for watching. This video will be hosted on YouTube for forever. So you'll be able to watch the stream after the fact. But if you want to send it to somebody else. But yeah, thanks for watching. I appreciate it. So Francesco, no, I do not have access to Dolly. It looks cool though. I definitely am excited to get my hands on it. Brent, yep, thank you for coming. Ask me if you have any questions while you're testing it out. And I'll definitely be able to help you out with those questions. Stick around for like 30 more seconds. Dab, Tom, who knows? That's really great. Is that a custom emoji? That's pretty sick. Yeah, that's pretty cool. They have a lot of custom emojis on YouTube. Elbow bump? I don't know what elbow bumps are, but sounds COVID related. Anyway, well, all right. I'm going to call it here. Thank you, everybody, for welcome to YouTube. No, I've been posting on YouTube for a while. I don't have many subscribers. I could put more effort in my videos, basically. But I think that YouTube is a fun platform. This is my first time streaming, though. So that is the case. But, all right, Well, Chash with the dab too. Always be dabbing. It's always the move. Great. Well, thanks everybody for watching. Really appreciate it. And again, let me know if you have any questions about it. You can find me on Twitter at _Bramsies. It's probably the easiest way to reach me. Or whatever. So, yeah. See you later.